Hello, welcome. This video is predicting that the U.S. Marines will invade Kharg Island in Iran on April 1st, 2026. The date that this video is posted proves that this prediction is being made ahead of time, as does this time-stamped email. As we can see here, this email was composed on March 26th. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward this to you. Also, this forensic notes PDF document proves this prediction is being made ahead of April 1st. I do not have any connections to the U.S. Marines or the Pentagon. Obviously, such a thing would be highly classified and top secret. The D-Day, if you will, of this invasion of Kharg Island. Okay, so it's predicted to be on April 1st, and, well, the skeptic will say, well, there was a good chance that this was going to happen, of course. And therefore, if it is going to happen, it will happen in the near future. That's also a correct assumption or understanding of where we are at as of March 26th. I should also mention that this prediction has been known for a few days, a number of days prior to April 1st. I got around to documenting it into an email on March 26th, but it was known prior to March 26th. But regardless, it doesn't matter because it's before April 1st. All right, so the skeptic will say that this was a good chance this was going to happen. Of course, that's true. And also, it was going to happen if it were going to happen in the near future, which is also true. That said, there's no way to know the specific date. And April 1st, to be fair, also is a little early in the timeline because it implies that as soon as the Marines get there, and even before the second group of Marines get there, I think, they'll be going straight in. Anyway, regardless, what will prove that this prediction is from God and not just luck are the reasons that I'll explain in this video for how this prediction is known in advance. These reasons will be clear. They will be apparently profound. What I mean is even the skeptic will be able to perceive how these connections are profound, whether they believe in a God or not, prior to this knowledge, prior to this prediction. They're clear, they're profound, and as you will see, no one is creative enough to have concocted these reasons in their own imagination. These reasons are from God, and that will be obvious. So, when this prediction comes to pass on this precise date, and by the way, April 1st in the Hebrew calendar begins at sunset on March 31st. So, it's possible that this invasion of Kharg Island will begin after sunset Israel time. It could still be daylight in the US on the 31st. Okay, so when I say the prediction is for April 1st, I actually mean from sunset on March 31st. Okay. Now, so when this prediction comes to pass, it'll prove, because of the reasons that I'll explain and you'll see, that could not have been concocted in the imagination of a human being, it'll prove that this prediction is from the righteous Christian God of the Bible. No other God. And no, not all of the gods, so-called, are the same God. That's the confusion that a lot of people have today in the West. because they have adopted this Indian religion. The Indian religion has replaced Christianity in the West because it is completely compatible with the modern Western mindset, which is the worship of the self. And so in this Eastern religion, where God is an impersonal energy and is the universe itself, the individual has simply forgotten that they are God, and the goal of this religion is to become so-called enlightened, which is essentially remembering that you are God, which is the complete opposite of Christianity, which is about humility, the opposite of the egoistic religion of believing that you are God and that you must do these so-called spiritual evolution practices such as yoga or meditation to facilitate this reawakening, so-called, and seeing through the so-called Maya, the illusion that you aren't God, and remembering that you were God all along. If you think I'm making a case for the Eastern religion, you couldn't be further from the truth. This is in fact deception from Satan that has these people, in a sense, worship themselves, which is antagonistic to the God of the Bible, who is highly concerned about false religion. The thing that God hates the most, the true God, the God of the righteous Christian God of the Bible, the thing that this God hates the most is false religious worship. And nothing is more false, and nothing is more of an idol, nothing is more idol worship than the worship of the self, which is the modern Western person, which is why the modern Western person has gravitated to Eastern religion to some degree or another. Most of them don't even know the basics of the Eastern religion like I just explained. But when you ask the modern Western person, the overwhelming majority of people will say to the question, they'll answer to the question, do you believe in God? And they will say yes, but not like the God of the Bible. More like God is an energy, an impersonal being. God is the universe itself, the so-called collective consciousness, etc. And the spiritual truth to this is the reason why they love this idea more, even though it's a complete lie and it's obvious. For one thing, the Big Bang, the origin of the universe, proves that the universe has a beginning and therefore a beginner. The reason why people, and so they'll either, the modern Western person will either answer that yes, but, or they will answer no, because there are about 10 or 13% of the population that is polled in these instances of these polls that will say that they are an atheist or an agnostic atheist. But the overwhelming majority of people today will say that they are yes, but, which is basically what they're trying to say, although they don't have the words for it because they don't think about these things very much because they've been conditioned to not think about them, is they're trying to describe Eastern religion, but they don't have the vocabulary because they don't really understand much. They don't think about these things because they are told that if they want to know if there's a God, the only way to know is to wait until they die. And then they'll know, because the core belief of the agnostic atheist religion, which is the Western religion today, is that there is no evidence for God. There may or may not be a God, but there is zero evidence for it, and so we'll just find out when we die. But that's, of course, a lie, the biggest lie, a fairy tale for adults. The possibility of the universe being mechanistic, or what they call positivism, or if you want materialism, this worldview that came out of the late 18th century and early 19th century, this outdated way of thinking, not based on science, so they think they are. They have this worldview they think that is based in science, but it's based in 18th century science when they realize that they don't need the flood to account for the lines in the rocks of geology. And like that was the breakthrough of the late 1700s. But they're still in that same mindset. And why? The spiritual truth to this is ultimately that they do not want there to be a personal being God, a holy God. The word holy is Hebrew, and it means separate from the creation, not the creation itself, like the pantheistic Eastern God, so-called God. They do not want there to be a capital G God, a monotheistic God that they are accountable to, because they don't want a God that they are accountable to. The original sin in the Bible is independence from God, and that's where they are at. They love their independence. The idea, the thought of them waking up in the morning and praying to a personal being God that they are accountable to is completely icky for them. They really do not like that idea at all. And that's why they have rejected God. They are, whether they know it or not, consciously, have accepted the truth or not, they are in spiritual rebellion against God. And they know that. They're not, at least if they're over the age of 30. If they're over the age of like 30, they know this. They've heard the basics of Christianity, and they know that if Christianity is true, they're in trouble. Well, here I am to tell you that it is true, and you are in trouble. You have rejected God, and that is the purpose of life, because if God wanted to create a creature and have a relationship with it, if he just stood in front of the creature and said, hey, welcome to life. I'm God. I created you. Love me. Or else. Well, that wouldn't be sincere, genuine love. And like anyone, no one would want to marry a robot or have someone forced to love them. And so, in God's design, it required that the individual that he created, the creature that he desired a relationship with, to have free will, which is how we are created in the image of God. We have free will. And we can choose to be with God forever or not. And if we choose this is a huge responsibility, because when we become immortal, we become God-like. And heaven wouldn't be heaven if people were in it the way they are today. That would be hell, which is why this life is a form of hell. It's not the hell. It can be much worse. This is a mixture. And that's another thing. God required that the individual be placed in an environment where unrighteousness can be contrasted against the righteousness in order to appreciate God and his righteousness. And when you reject the righteous Christian God of the Bible, you are rejecting God and his ways, which is righteousness. When you choose the Indian religion and the worship of the self, you are in fact, in truth, seeking avoidance of accepting and acknowledging your unrighteousness. Which is why Christianity is really, in a way, a test of humility, or rather, a choice. Like I said, free will choice. And so anyway, you get the point. And when this prediction comes to pass, it'll prove everything that I am saying, and that is the purpose of this prediction that is from God. And what will prove that this prediction is from God are the reasons that I'll now explain. So April 1st, 2026, this email is documenting the prediction that the U.S. Marines will invade Kharg Island in Iran on April 1st. And this date, April 1st, will be 4 plus 4 plus 4 days after the date 320, when the news of Chuck Norris's death came out. Okay? This date 320 hints at the number 32, which is the equivalent in simple English gematria, A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3, of the word bomb. So these are just my notes, by the way. There's so much information here. And this is going to take some time to explain each of these lines. But we're going to go through it. So Chuck Norris, if you don't know, well, what can I say if you don't know who Chuck Norris is? If you don't know who Chuck Norris is, either you are not a Westerner or you were born after the year 1985 or something like that. Anyway, he was a big 1980s action movie star. And he starred in this movie series, Delta Force. Okay? Delta Force is a branch of the military. It's not a branch of the military. It's part of the military. I don't know which branch it's in. Maybe it's the Army. Maybe it's the Marines. Probably it's the Marines, but that would just be a guess. But in the movie Delta Force, which came out shortly after the formation of Delta Force, the movie in the plot mentions one of the first operations of Delta Force, which was Operation Eagle Claw, which is what this stands for right here. Operation Eagle Claw. That was when Jimmy Carter sent in Marines to try to rescue, so I guess Delta Force is Marines, okay. So to try to rescue the hostages that were taken at the U.S. Embassy in Tehran in 1979. Okay, so in other words, right away we know that the death of Chuck Norris hints at Iran because of this movie Delta Force that includes in the plot of the movie the first operation of Delta Force, or one of the first. Okay, now the rescue of the hostages was in the middle of what is known as the Iranian hostage crisis, also known as the 444-day hostage crisis. The 444-day hostage crisis began on the date 11/4. 11 times 4 is 44. The 44th president, Antichrist, was elected in the year 4 plus 4, 2008, on the date 11/4, which hints at 11 times 4 equals 44. This is the 44th president. The 44th president's name, Obama, is equal to 32 in simple English gematria, as is the word bomb, which is what is hinted at with this date, 320, 32. Okay, now, so God is playing with these patterns here, right? This is how prophecy works. The Christian, the Gentile understanding of Bible prophecy is prediction fulfillment. But the reality is, and how Jews understand prophecy, is pattern. There's pattern throughout the Bible. The Bible is, in fact, a pattern. One can take an infinite number of pathways through the Bible, and it's all interconnected. It's one big pattern. And that's the same with God's prophetic signs. It's a pattern we are analyzing and understanding here. And God repeats a number 3 times for emphasis of its symbolic meaning. Jimmy Carter's last 444 days of his presidency coincided with the 444-day hostage crisis. Now, which began on the date that hinted at 44, as I just explained. But also, and as I just explained, it points to the 44th president, who was elected in the year 44 on the same date. And in Operation Eagle Claw, in the middle of the 444-day hostage crisis, the mission to rescue the hostages, by the way, there were 53 hostages. 53 is the 4 times 4th prime number. In the attempt to rescue 4 times 4 prime number hostages, 4 plus 4 helicopters were sent out. Only 4 of them returned. That's a 4 and 4. There was a rendezvous in the Iranian desert, a location that they named Desert 1, and 5 helicopters made it to the first stage of the rescue operation. When they landed, an Iranian civilian bus came by and they had to take it captive to keep their operation secret. 44 civilians were on the bus. At the rendezvous at Desert 1 in the western Iranian desert, a helicopter collided with the refueling plane, and 4 plus 4 military personnel were killed. And 4 personnel were injured. In other words, 4 plus 4 plus 4. Okay. Now, the thing about Chuck Norris here too, and why this 4 plus 4 days connection is relevant from the state 4-1, which by the way hints at 1 times 4 equals 4. Okay? This invasion of Kharg Island is pointed at through the news of Chuck Norris's death 4 plus days earlier, but also that points to Operation Eagle Claw, in which there were 4 plus 4 deaths. Well, the news of Chuck Norris's death was 4 plus 4 days after an aviation disaster, a plane crash, when 2 planes collided, including a refueling plane. In the desert in western Iraq, which hinted at the collision with the helicopter and the refueling plane in the desert of western Iran. That's right. This plane crash on March 12th was a pattern with Operation Eagle Claw. The astounding thing about it is that with that crash made it a total of 13 deaths, and it has been 13 deaths since then. There hasn't been a single death in this war on the US side since then, which further cements the validity of this 13 total deaths. There were 6 people that died in the plane crash, which hints at 2 times 3, which hints at 23, and God pairs 23 and 44 together to confirm the signs and connections. And by the way, this is how God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works, which is only being explained on this channel. It works on the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses confirming a matter as the Bible says is required. And this is what makes what is being explained on this channel true and not a product of one's imagination and different and unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. And if we think about it, one simple way in which God would provide a second witness for us is through pairing certain numbers together, such as 23 and 44. And I know that these are the numbers. I know that these are the building blocks of God's big picture of signs because I've been studying his big picture of signs, patterns, and connections from morning until night for more than full-time hours for more than 8 years. The 44th president is the basketball president who wore jersey number 23. That's why. Yes, that's correct. The building blocks, the foundation of how God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works, which is only being explained on this channel, is built upon the identification of the Antichrist. Contrary to the evangelicals who love to play the Antichrist guessing game, and they really love it. They love this Antichrist guessing game because of their false, heretical salvation doctrine that has them incorrectly interpret 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Anyway, it's astounding that we are stuck, or rather not stuck, but we are stable at this 13 deaths for this amount of time, because the number 13 hints at Iran. Because in the book of Esther in the Bible, the Iranians, the ancient Persians, attempted to exterminate the Jews on the 13th day of the month. Furthermore, in the Bible, the number 13 is symbolic of the Antichrist, because Haman, in the book of Esther, attempted to exterminate the Jews on the 13th days of the months. Also, Iran, the word, is equal to 130 in Hebrew gematria, which hints at 13. The number 13 also symbolizes America, as it was founded with 13 colonies. And so this war between America and Iran is symbolized by the number 13. And here we have this prediction for this April 1st date in this war between the US and Iran. This will be the first time that US troops will be operating on Iranian soil. The date 4-1 hints at 41, which is the 13th prime number. You're starting to understand now what I said at the beginning, which is that these reasons are clear and profound and will prove that I know April 1st because of God's prophetic signs. To conclude otherwise makes you a fool. And I don't only say that because of the irony of April 1st being April Fool's Day. I literally mean you are a complete, utter fool to conclude anything other than this is from this prediction, the righteous Christian God of the Bible. By the way, the date of the crash in itself hints at 3 fours, I should say. 312. Because 12 is divided in 3 ways with 4. 4 plus 4 plus 4. The date 312 hints at this 4 plus 4 plus 4 days connection that I mentioned earlier. Okay, so that's this first point here. We're just getting started with the profound information that proves that this is a prediction from God. But you know what? This is enough. This is enough for any reasonable person. But I understand that God did not design people to be reasonable. However, we do our best here. If you continue to ignore the evidence for God, and I do mean continue, you've been doing it all of your life. If you continue to do this, including with this prediction, you're only deepening your judgment. And people do not all go to the same place after they die. It's all relative to the amount of light and truth they the individual received in their lifetime. And by the way, that explains how or what happens to people that never heard the gospel, that were born before Christ, etc. And those that really didn't get a full, good opportunity to hear the gospel. The vast majority of people that have lived will get a second chance after they die, contrary to what other Christians will tell you, who do not interpret the Bible correctly. And by the way, I do understand that it is a good reason to dismiss what they tell you, but you are not excused because you should have looked into it yourself. You shouldn't have just believed that they were telling you exactly how it is in the Bible. You should have looked it up yourself. But it is true. It is righteous. And we all have the instinct for righteousness, which is why you would have maybe foolishly rejected God based on your arrogance of your own of your own mind and your own ability to make a decision based on what you had heard some Christian tell you about people being tormented forever in hell. Obviously, it's true. Obviously, a good God would not do that. Obviously, you are correct. But that doesn't mean that you had permission to dismiss the Bible, because that's not what the Bible says. Okay? So just because a quote-unquote Christian tells you this or that about the Bible is no reason for you to rebel, refuse to accept the truth about what is obvious, which is that there is a creator, and obviously he would have informed us somehow of his existence. And obviously, when you think about it, it's got to be the Bible. And it is. And the way God proves it is that 1/3 of the Bible is prophecy. And this video here, these signs are a form of prophecy. Revelation 19:10. The testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. Now, this plane crash that I explained how it is a parallel with the plane crash in Operation Eagle Claw, which was all about the 444 pattern, with the 4+4 deaths and 4 injured in Operation Eagle Claw, when they attempted to rescue 4 times 4th prime number of hostages and held captive 44 civilians in Iran. All right, as I explained, April 1st is 4 plus 4 times 4 days to March 12th. So you can skip the Chuck Norris interval there on March 20th and have this 4 plus 4 times 4 connection, which also gives us 3 4s. The 444-day hostage crisis. And, by the way, even when you heard, if you are, a baby boomer and you knew that the hostage crisis was 444 days, and that's one of the names it goes by, I mean, what did you think? Did you think that that was just a coincidence? Did you really think that there's no God? Did you really think that America is not God's Gentile nation that he has chosen? Did you really think that? Did you really think something is so foolish as to that not being the case? Did you not see the obviousness of how America is God's Gentile nation that he used in his big plan to spread the gospel around the world in the 19th and 20th centuries, along with the other English-speaking countries? Did you not see that this was their role in history? How could you not see that? And how could you not recognize that the 444-day hostage crisis meant something? Now, fair enough, you wouldn't have known what to conclude by that, but you should have at least recognized that that's a little fishy. Now, if you were a person who loved righteousness, you would eventually figure out that it's pointing to because of the president that is responsible for the aborting of the mission, and it's all about Jimmy Carter, in other words, you would extrapolate, though this must be therefore pointing to the 44th president, who was 4 plus 4 presidents later. That's right. Well, no, so I need to correct that. There is a prophecy that's identifying Barack Obama through the 8th president after Jimmy Carter. Because there's this prophecy regarding the 7 kings, and Jimmy Carter was inaugurated in the year 77. And Trump, God's trumpet, is the 7th of the presidents. And that's another thing, because Trump is a type for Joshua, who led the Israelites before the walls of security collapsed in God's judgment on Jericho after they blew 7 trumpets. That's another subject. The 8th president is the Antichrist. And it isn't Biden, because Biden wasn't really the president. And that's why he wasn't really the president. It's part of this prophecy. He was, as Trump says, the autopen president. He was in the office, but he wasn't the president. The people around him were the president. His regime was the president, and that was simply a continuation of Obama, who will be the next president. On Michelle Obama, which doesn't count really because she'll just be president for a short period. It's all symbolic, right? It's all pattern. See, the Western mind, as I said at the beginning, thinks in terms of precision, but they don't understand pattern and symbolism. You need to have this Jewish mind to understand prophecy. Anyway, Michelle will be the president briefly. Obama will be the president on June 17th, 2029. After Michelle Obama becomes the 49th president on January 20th, 2029. And actually, J.D. Vance will be the president briefly also. Okay, so, but the 8th, the real next president, the 8th president in this prophecy, which is actually a sub-fulfillment, a secondary fulfillment of the main primary fulfillment of this prophecy, which identifies Pope Francis. But that's another subject. But speaking of the date 4-1, which hints at 41, and the number 13, see, it's all pattern, it's all interconnected. When you try to explain one part of the giant web of the interconnected signs, you end up pulling the entire web, which makes it extremely difficult to explain, because you have to explain it all at once. You can't explain it all at once, because to explain it all at once, to explain something, it needs to be explained in a linear fashion, but it's not linear, it's three-dimensional. How do you explain something that's three-dimensional? Anyway, the symbol of the Vatican is keys. 41 is equivalent to the word key in simple English gematria. It's also the 13th prime number, and the Antichrist, Pope Francis, and Barack Obama, the two Antichrists, are described in the 13th chapter of Revelation. And Francis was elected on the date 313 in the year 13, and on and on. Okay, so, and let's see. Oh, this date 4-1 will be 4 plus 4 days before April 13th. Now, something is going on with April 13th. God is pointing to April 13th. My belief at this point is that the reason why God is pointing to April 1st and April 13th is that April 1st is the date for the Kharg Island invasion, and April 13th will be the day of the 13% collapse in the stock market, but it could actually be the reverse. It could be that on April 1st, the stock market collapsed 13%, and April 13th will be the date of the Kharg Island invasion, or some kind of combination of the two. We'll see. I'm not going to talk anymore about April 13th because I could talk about that even longer than I could talk about April 1st. Much longer, actually. But this is long enough. Now, April 1st will be 90 days exactly after the Iranian mayor of New York City became the mayor on the date 1/1 and became the 111th mayor. That's astounding. It's New York City. The mayor resides in Manhattan, the location of the 9/11 events. And so 90 days from the date 1/1, or also 90 days from the 111th mayor, who is Iranian? And let it not be lost on the irony here that the 9/11 events were perpetrated by Muslims. And now we have a Muslim mayor. This is all prophetic. If you didn't recognize this, I feel sorry for you. But now you know. I mean, think about that. Just think about that. Of course, the fact that we have a Muslim mayor of New York City is prophetic. Are you kidding? What were you thinking? You thought that was coincidence? You thought that was an accident? You didn't think that this was an indicator of the end? Of course it's an indicator of the end. A Muslim mayor in New York City, where 9/11 happened. Open your eyes. It's all around you. Wake up. There is a God. It's the righteous Christian God of the Bible. He would do this. Obviously, he would do something like this. Islam is from Satan. If you don't know that, you don't understand anything about any religion, because the Islamists think that Christians are from Satan. That's how it works. The modern liberal mind is completely lost. They do not think or understand clearly anything because of political correctness and that shaping their worldview into some form of idea that all the religions are, in their words, different paths up the same mountain, etc., which is more Eastern religion. That's what the Eastern religionists would say. That's why I said earlier, the modern Westerner has become, or rather, the Indian religion has replaced Christianity in the West. And that includes this tolerance, or rather intolerance of intolerance. That's the irony. The most intolerant people in the world today, you could say, are liberals. They're at least equally intolerant as the Islamists. They have an intolerance of any sort. You cannot say that one religion is true. They all must be true, because to say otherwise is intolerant. And their religion is intolerance of intolerance. That's their religion. The liberal politics have become their religion. And one of the foundations of that belief system is the intolerance of intolerance. So that's why it must be true that the Indian religion is true, because it comports with their idea that nothing is true, because to say otherwise is intolerant. And so therefore there's no more truth, which is why they are nihilists. The modern Western liberal is a nihilist. They are Nietzsche, the Nietzscheanization of the left, as one famous book put it. That book, by the way, was written in the 80s, The Closing of the American Mind, a foundational book in modern conservative thought. The Nietzscheanization, they don't know it, but they are in line with the philosophers of the Nazis. and they are the Nazis. They don't know it. And they use this term Nazi to condemn any kind of conservative thinking. Why? Because any form of intolerant, because they're intolerant of intolerance. So they're the Nazis. But they go around accusing anyone of any sort of degree of intolerance as being Nazi. They're like crazy, possessed, anti-Nazi people. But they're the Nazis by being so. They're nihilists, which is the foundation of Nazi philosophy. The irony, literally, they are the philosophical Nazis. And what's coming also is a genocide perpetrated by the political left. And they will think that they are doing good, just like they did during the CVD disease. They will think that they are doing good. Just like the left thinks that they are doing good currently when they condemn and when they speak like genocidal people without even knowing it. When they do their cancel culture stuff and their anti-Semitism, anti-Israel stuff. They're genocidal Nazis in disguise. It's who they are. They are with Satan. The modern liberal left person is with Satan. We are at the end of civilization here because the modern liberal left person is with Satan. That's why they are anti-Christian. Because in their mind, Christians are intolerant because they believe in a truth. It's as simple as that. They hate those who hate evil. Because those who hate evil are intolerant. But the truth is, they are the intolerant ones. They are the intolerant Nazis. And that's why they cannot see how an Iranian mayor could be anything other than a coincidence. A Muslim mayor. But this prediction will prove it. 90 days after the date 1/1 and the 111th mayor, it is predicted that America will invade Iran, a Muslim nation, the Islamic Republic of Iran. This is a connection from the Iranian Muslim mayor. 9/11 was from God. It was a warning of judgment. And this prediction will prove this. And this is the purpose of this prediction that is from God. For one will be 17,760 days after the death of the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley. The nation was founded in 1776. 1776 is 4 times 444. Do you think that's a coincidence? That the year America was founded is 4 times 444? And that the Iranian hostage crisis was a 444-day hostage crisis, which led to Operation Eagle Claw, in which 4 plus 4 were killed and 4 were injured, while 44 civilians were captured and held, and while they were trying to rescue 4 times 4th prime number of hostages? Yes, the 444-day Iran hostage crisis pointed to the foundation of America, which was founded in God. One of only 2 nations in the history of the world that were founded on a relationship with God and the Bible, Israel and America. Every other nation in the world was founded on land, geography, ethnicity, language. Only 2 nations in the history of the world were founded on a relationship with God. And there's a pattern in that too. Because the pilgrims who escaped the persecution from the King of England saw their crossing of the Atlantic to the promised land, New World, as analogous to the escape of the Israelites from the persecution of the King of Egypt and their crossing of the Jordan River into the promised land. And it was also a crossing from east to west. It's all God. It's all God's design. It's all a pattern. It's all prophecy. The testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. When you have the eyes to see, when you are done rebelling against God, you can see it's all clear. It's all around you. You just need to think. So, now, why Elvis Presley? He died in the 4 times 4th state. Why did he die there? It's the area of the country nicknamed Little Egypt. It's in Memphis, Tennessee, which is named after Memphis, Egypt. The king living in his mansion is analogous, or rather a hint at, the king of Egypt living in his palace in ancient Egypt. And the king of Egypt, who persecuted the Israelites, is a type for the Antichrist king, the 44th president. Which, by the way, is why even the date, the 8th month is 4 plus 4. The 16th day is 4 plus 4 plus 4. This gets us to this date, 4-1, which means that 4 times 1 equals 4. And this number of days is 4 times 4,440. From the death of the king in the 4 times 4th state. There's actually a lot more to all of this. This is just the surface level to try to explain this here in this video. But Trump just visited Graceland on the 27th, or was it the 26th? That's another subject, but it's all related to this prediction for Kharg Island. I think I even get to it later in this video. Now this is interesting here. Now, April 1st will be 6 years and 66 days after the death of Kobe Bryant in a helicopter crash. Now, I'm just going to scratch the surface here, but Kobe Bryant's helicopter crash hinted at Operation Eagle Claw and the helicopter crash in the Iranian desert. That's right. And Kobe Bryant wore jersey number 8, 4 plus 4. And jersey number 24, which is 3/8, which is 3 4 plus 4s. But anyway. Now, Kobe Bryant was arrested for a charge of rape in Eagle, Colorado. Eagle, Colorado gives us Eagle CO. The abbreviation for Colorado is CO. Capital C, capital O. Eagle CO hints at Operation Eagle Claw. Right? Operation Eagle Claw is an Eagle CO. That's why Kobe Bryant died in a helicopter crash. I could prove this in way more ways, which I do in another video. There's so much more to say about this, right? There's just scratching the surface here. Now, I'll just say this though, for now. The pilot was Azerbaijani of the helicopter. And it is believed that the Lord is pointing to Azerbaijan. I'm not going to make it a prediction though, because I could be wrong. But I think at this point, and we'll wait to see for more clarification and more confirmation from more prophetic signs to see if it's true. But I think that the US troops will come in through Azerbaijan as well. But I don't know for sure. It would make perfect sense. The easiest way to get to Tehran would be through Azerbaijan. But that's also why, if this is true, and I think it is, but I'm not going to make it a prediction. Maybe I should. But that's why the president of Iran died in a helicopter crash at the Azerbaijani border. And that's why Kobe Bryant's pilot was Azerbaijani in the helicopter crash. By the way, that date of the president of Iran's crash, May 19th, 2024, in advance of that date, I predicted that there would be a major aviation disaster. I did. I documented that, and that's exactly what happened. And there's even more, because I knew that was going to happen, because it was the 99th anniversary of Malcolm X's birth. Malcolm X was the leader of the Nation of Islam. On that day, there was an aviation disaster involving the leader of the Islamic Nation of Iran. Also on that day, Joe Biden gave a speech to the all-black male college, Morehouse, and Malcolm X was known for delivering speeches to an all-black male audience, young black male audience, just like Joe Biden did. The leader of the nation, Biden, pointed to the leader of the Nation of Islam on this date that I predicted in advance. And I didn't know in advance that Biden would be giving that speech. Anyway, the 6 years, 66 days connection is obvious because of the number 666 associated with the Antichrist in Bible prophecy. Well, I guess I need to add this now too, because in the book of Revelation, a key opens the door to the bottomless pit, from which the demons will come out of and demonically possess people, though, who have taken the mark of the Antichrist, which is the thing, the VACCINE. The components in the thing make their way to people's brains, which will induce demonic possession. Long story short. That's symbolized by an X. The mark of the Antichrist is symbolized by an X in God's signs. And that's what's also hinted at with helicopters because of their rotor blades that are in the shape of an X. Kobe died just before the CVD disease hysteria. The mass psychosis. The scare over something that wasn't really scary. The hysteria. The name Kobe, when sounded out in Hebrew letters, is COVID. By the way, he wore number 24, and he died 24 days before the peak of the stock market, before the crash. And he crashed 24 days earlier. Okay, so that's enough of that one. There's more to that, like I said, but that's another video. All right, I have decided to break this up into multiple parts. This is the end of part 1. Obviously, when the prediction comes to pass, the wise person will recognize that they need to watch every single minute of every video on this channel. Make sure you watch part 2. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived, And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. In the last days, many people who claim to be a follower of Christ will have spiritual experiences that are in reality demonic. God became a man and died a horrible death at the hand of the ruler of this world, Satan, and then defeated death for you, so that you too can overcome death, which is the price that must be paid for sin. It is time to repent, which means to change one's ways and turn to God and become a disciple of Jesus. Do not listen to or follow the example of most quote-unquote Christians. Instead, follow the teachings of Jesus, which most quote-unquote Christians ignore. Like Jesus, you must surrender your life. Put nothing ahead of Jesus, your Lord. Like Jesus, you must lay down your life so that you may live. As Jesus said, one must die first, like a kernel of wheat going into the ground, in order to then grow and produce fruit. And like Jesus said, one must produce fruit, or else like a branch or a tree not producing fruit, they will be thrown into the fire. Jesus was speaking to quote-unquote Christians when he said this. One must die the self in order to be born again. And like Jesus said, one must be born again to enter the kingdom. Like Jesus, you must sacrifice your life for the sake of the coming kingdom. It means to do work that involves some form of sacrifice and risk. To have faith does not mean to intellectually agree. You need to demonstrate your faith through taking action. To have faith means to trust in God's promises. Taking action demonstrates trust and fear of the Lord. The primary reason that the wrath of God is coming upon America is quote-unquote Christians that do not get what I have just explained. The only reason a Christian is alive is in order to help other people become Christians and make it to the kingdom. Do not be deceived by those on the political left claiming to be quote-unquote Christians. There is no such thing as a Christian on today's political progressive left. Jesus said, "Do not think I have come to abolish or change any bit of the law or the prophets of the Old Testament Bible." In other words, the God of the Old Testament Bible is the exact same God of the New Testament Bible. It is essential that you learn about the God of the Bible and his ways. The God of the Old Testament Bible is looking to see who will fear him, and to fear God is not the same thing as quote-unquote revering or honoring God. Through Christ's ransom payment, a Christian is someone who has been redeemed and freed from slavery to sin and Satan. In response, a true Christian recognizes that their life in this world does not belong to them, and they become a willing slave to Jesus for the sake of the kingdom. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. And don't only put the link to this video or another video on this channel in comments sections of places you typically visit, but importantly, put the link to the video in places you never visit, where people who don't think like you visit. If you are a quote-unquote Christian, nothing in terms of an evangelism tool compares to this video with its prediction. It is a massive bag of gold. Beware of Jesus' warning through the quote-unquote Christian that did nothing with his bag of gold and was banished to hell. Also, read Ezekiel chapter 3 and 33 for this same warning. If you think you might be spending too much time watching videos instead of working and sacrificing for the kingdom through handing out flyers and potentially helping hundreds of people in the same length of time as a video, my flyer is filled with amazing information that people need to know right now, and it points people to the video channel. Now is not the time to be handing out typical evangelical tracts that are largely based in error anyway, such as, quote, Jesus loves you, unquote, for example. You can hand out the flyer on busy street corners, put them on car windshields in busy parking lots, and put them in mailboxes. Just send the file to your local print shop. You can download the file from the website. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, asteroidprediction.com. If you are watching this on the YouTube platform, please note that not all of the videos are on YouTube. You need to switch to the odyssey.com or rumble.com channel, and do it now in case you aren't able to later.